big time.
The news on Favour FM 96.3.
Welcome to 12 o'clock English news with me, Richard Dowd. Let me start with the headlines. United Nations calls for urgent deployment of peace forces amidst increasing insecurity in South Sudan. Justice Minister and British envoy discuss judicial reform. And President Trump blames Ukraine after US-Russia talk. Welcome to the news in details with me, Richard Dowd. Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs met with the British ambassador to South Sudan on Tuesday to discuss judicial reform, the development of an effective justice system, and the implementation of the 2018 peace agreement. The talks centered on how the United Kingdom can support South Sudan in these efforts. Speaking to reporters after the meeting, David Ashley, the British ambassador to South Sudan, noted that South Sudan inherited certain aspects of the British legal and judicial system, making the partnership a natural fit. Ambassador Ashley emphasized that the meeting also addressed the implementation of the 2018 peace agreement, particularly elements under the purview of the Ministry of Justice, such as judicial reform, constitutional reform, and transitional justice. Joseph Malek Arop, the Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, said the meeting focused on three critical issues: the status of the peace agreement's implementation, human rights concerns across the country, and capacity building. The United Nations mission in South Sudan has commended the government of South Sudan commitment to ending child recruitment and addressing grave violations against minors by armed groups. Speaking at the functions to commemorate Red Hand Day, also known as the International Day Against the Use of Child Soldiers, which is observed on 12 February annually, Anita Kiki Gobeho, the Deputy Special Representative of the United Nations Mission in South Sudan and resident humanitarian coordinator, commended the effort, commended the facilitation and the release of child soldiers from armed groups. For his part, Lieutenant General Ashaab Khamis Fahal, Assistant Chief of Defense for Moral Orientation and Chaplaincy, reassured the SSPDF's commitment to protect children against violations and ensure that they are not recruited to serve as child soldiers. Meanwhile, the Undersecretary in the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare, Esther Ekeri, said the ministry and partners are collaborating to support former child soldiers. The United Nations mission in South Sudan has called for the urgent deployment of the necessary unified forces to address escalating insecurity in Western Equatoria and Upper Nile State. Nicholas Haisum, the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General and head of the UNMISS, expressed deep concern over the deteriorating situation in both regions and urged the government to expedite security sector reforms and deploy the unified forces to restore peace. United Nations mission in South Sudan condemned the recent violence and called on the government and all parties to uphold the peace agreement. Heavy fighting erupted between the South Sudan People's Defense Forces and armed youth in Nasir on February 14th and 15th, resulting in civilians and military casualties. One United Nations mission in South Sudan peacekeeper was injured during the clashes while conducting a pre-planned patrol when mortar shells landed nearby. Persistent tensions between organized forces in Western Equatoria have also led to death, property destructions, and civilian displacement in both states, UNMISS said. The mission said it is engaging with the communities and authorities in the affected areas to de-escalate tensions. The South Sudan People Defense Forces and the Sudan People Liberation Movement in opposition, SPLA-IO, has traded accusations over the causes of the clashes. You are listening to Favour English News. Authorities in Kapoita North County, Eastern Equatorial State, have accused youth from the Greater Bibor administrative area of killing 14 civilians, including women and children, in a violent attack last week. The incident, which occurred early Friday morning, also left 9 people injured and resulted in the theft of more than 700 head of cattle. The Kapoita North leadership has blamed GPAA officials for allegedly providing arms to their youth, enabling them to carry out attacks on innocent civilians in Eastern Equatorial State. Kapoita North County Commissioner David Nyai said that the attackers appeared to be waging war against the people of Eastern Equatorial State. He called on Greater Bibor Administrative Area leadership to investigate the attack and ensure accountability for those responsible. Gerard Locale, a youth leader in Kapoita North County, urged Greater Bibor Administrative Area authorities to refrain from actions that violate the right to life. He accused Greater Bibor leadership of inciting violence by arming residents and demanded the immediate return of the stolen cattle. Elia John Lotede, a resident of Kapoita North, expressed deep sorrow over the killing of women and children, calling it a grave violation of human rights. He emphasized the need for dialogue between the two areas to prevent further attacks on civilians. In regional news, more than 200 unarmed civilians have been killed in a cluster of a village in Sudan over 3 days by the paramilitary rapid support forces that is involved in a brutal conflict with the military, a local rights groups has reported. The emergency lawyers network said the attacks happened in Al-Qadaris and Al-Khilwat towards the north of White Nile State, areas where the military had no presence. Rapid support forces fighters were guilty of executions, kidnappings, enforced disappearance, and property looting, the network added. The rapid support forces, which was allied to the military before the civil war broke out in the April 2023, has not commented on the allegations. The two had come to power together in coup but fell out over an internationally backed plan to move towards civil rule. Some senior rapid support forces leaders are currently in Kenya, where they are expected to announce plans to form their own government in areas under their control. Analysts warn the move could deepen divisions in Sudan. Tens of thousands of civilians have been killed, with both the rapid support forces and army accused of committing atrocities. The RSF was recently dealt a significant blow when the arm gained control of parts of the capital Khartoum, including its military headquarters. Beyond the capital, the army has also won near total control of the crucial state of Al Jazeera. Following the setbacks, the Rapid Support Forces has rebounded with plans to launch a rival government in areas still under its control, which are mainly in Darfur and parts of Kordofan State. The paramilitary rapid support forces is meeting allied groups in Nairobi to finalize the adoption of what it calls a political charter for the governments of peace and unity in Sudan. General Burhan has rejected the move and has vowed to reclaim the whole of Khartoum. Lastly, in the world news, President Donald Trump has taken aim at Ukraine after its president Vladimir Zelensky said it was a surprise that his country was not invited to peace talks in Saudi Arabia to end the Ukraine war. Trump said was disappointed by Ukraine's reaction and appeared to blame Ukraine for starting the war, saying the country could have made a deal. The war in Ukraine was sparked by a full-scale Russian invasion almost 3 years ago. His comments came after Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said his country won't accept peacekeeping force from NATO countries in Ukraine under any peace deal, following talks with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Saudi Arabia. Russia and the U.S. said they had agreed to appoint teams to start negotiating the end of the war. Speaking to reporters at Mar-a-Lago, Trump was asked what his message was to Ukrainians who might feel betrayed. He answered by blaming Ukrainians for not utilizing the opportunities given to them in the last 3 years. With this, our dear listeners, we have come to the end of this news, but here is a recap of the headlines. UN calls for urgent deployment of peace forces amidst increasing insecurity in the country. Justice Minister and British envoy discuss judicial reforms in South Sudan. And lastly, Trump blames Ukraine after United States and Russia talks. Our Bible verse is taken from Psalms 22 verse 19, and it says, "But you, Lord, do not be far from me. You are my strength. Come quickly to help me." For more stories, visit our website favorfmjuba.org or like our Facebook Favour FM Juba. We are also on YouTube Favour FM Juba. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned.
That was the news
on Favour FM 96.3, the heartbeat of God.
Announcement. We are going to be off air for some few minutes, then we shall be back. So be informed as you are listening to us. You just tune to your radio after 5 minutes from now. Bye.